The early warning systems across Earth's defense network lit up simultaneously. Deep space sensors detected something massive approaching from the outer reaches of the solar system. Not a natural phenomenon, but thousands of ships moving in perfect formation. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the Global Defense Command Center, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the incoming fleet's trajectory. "How many?" she asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Over 3,000 vessels, Admiral," responded Captain Marcus Rodriguez, his fingers dancing across the tactical interface. "Largest ones are about the size of Manhattan. They're maintaining a unified approach vector toward Earth." The command center hummed with controlled tension. Humanity had prepared for this possibility ever since achieving interplanetary civilization status 50 years ago. But preparation and reality were very different things. "Open a channel on all frequencies," Sarah ordered. "Let's see if they're willing to talk before things get complicated." The response came faster than expected. A transmission that automatically translated itself into every language on Earth simultaneously. The voice that echoed through the command center was neither male nor female, carrying an artificial smoothness that made it clear this was a constructed form of communication. "People of Earth, we are the Galactic Imperium. Your solar system lies within our designated expansion zone. We offer you the opportunity to accept our authority and become a protectorate state. Resistance will result in immediate pacification." Sarah's jaw tightened. Humanity had spent the last 5 decades building their defenses, establishing colonies on Mars and Venus, and developing technologies that could protect Earth from exactly this type of threat. They weren't about to surrender everything they'd built to the first empire that came knocking. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We acknowledge your message but reject your claim to our territory. Earth and the Sol system are sovereign space. We are willing to discuss peaceful diplomatic relations as equals." The silence that followed lasted exactly 30 seconds before the alien response came. "Your technological level is insufficient to warrant independent status. You will be integrated or eliminated. You have 24 Earth hours to reconsider." The transmission cut off abruptly. Sarah turned to her command staff, each face showing the same determination she felt. "Signal all defense stations and colonial outposts. Initiate Protocol Aegis, and get me a direct line to the Security Council. They need to know we're about to make history." Over the next several hours, humanity's defensive machinery sprang into action. The orbital defense grid powered up its shield generators, while stealth satellites moved into predetermined positions. On Mars and Venus, hidden weapon platforms emerged from their camouflaged positions in the planetary surfaces. Dr. Emily Patel, head of the Advanced Defense Research Division, rushed into the command center with a tablet in her hands. "Admiral, we might have something. The energy signatures from their ships. They're using a form of faster-than-light travel that relies on bending spacetime in a very specific way." Sarah raised an eyebrow. And we've been studying similar principles for our own FTL program. More importantly, we know its weaknesses. Their drive systems leave them vulnerable to certain types of gravitational disruption. If we can modify our planetary shield technology." "How long?" Sarah interrupted. 12 hours to implement the modifications. "But Admiral, this is untested technology. We'd be betting everything on a theory." Sarah looked back at the tactical display, where the enormous alien fleet continued its inexorable approach. "Sometimes the best defense is the one your enemy doesn't expect. Make it happen, Doctor. Humanity just became the testing ground for your theory." As the hours ticked by, Earth's population received the news of the impending confrontation. Instead of panic, there was a surge of unity and determination. Volunteer centers were flooded with citizens offering their skills and resources. Research facilities worldwide coordinated their efforts, sharing data and innovations freely. In orbit, the combined space forces of Earth's nations moved into defensive formations. These ships were smaller than their alien counterparts, but they were built with decades of paranoid preparation in mind. Each vessel carried experimental weapons and defensive systems designed specifically to counter potential alien technology. 6 hours before the deadline, Dr. Patel's team completed the modifications to Earth's planetary defense system. The new configuration would use Earth's own magnetic field as a foundation, theoretically creating a disruption effect that could disable the alien fleet's drive systems. "This is either going to be humanity's finest moment," Sarah said as she authorized the system's activation, "or we're about to learn a very harsh lesson about our place in the galaxy." The massive alien fleet drew closer, their ships now visible as dark shapes against the star-filled backdrop of space. Earth's defenders waited in position, every weapon charge, every scanner active. They were about to find out if humanity's preparation and ingenuity would be enough to stand against an empire that spanned the stars. Sarah Chen stood at her command post, watching the countdown to the deadline tick away. In less than an hour, they would either make history or become another cautionary tale about the price of defiance. But as she looked at the determined faces of her crew, she knew humanity had made the right choice. They would face this threat on their feet, not their knees. The first shots of the greatest battle in human history were about to be fired, and Earth was ready to show the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. The modified planetary defense system hummed to life, sending vibrations through the command center's floor. Dr. Emily Patel's fingers flew across her console, making minute adjustments as Earth's magnetic field began responding to the new configuration. Around the planet, a faint aurora became visible even in daylight, casting ethereal colors across the sky. "Field strength at 60% and rising," Emily reported, her voice tense with concentration. "The magnetic resonance is stable, but we're seeing some unusual harmonics in the upper atmosphere." Admiral Chen watched as the massive alien fleet drew closer, their ships now clearly visible against the backdrop of space. The Imperium vessels were sleek and angular, their dark hulls seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with an eerie precision that spoke of advanced automation or artificial intelligence. "They're launching smaller craft," Captain Rodriguez announced, pointing to the tactical display. "Looks like scout ships, probably testing our defenses." Sarah nodded, having expected this move. "Let them come. Don't engage unless they fire first." "Dr. Patel, how long until the shield is at full strength?" 3 minutes to maximum power." "But Admiral, there's something else you should see." Emily pulled up a new display showing energy readings from the alien fleet. "Their ships are generating some kind of field that's interfering with our standard sensors. If we hadn't modified the defense grid, we might have missed it completely." The scout ships accelerated toward Earth, their formation spreading out to probe different sectors of the planet's defenses. As they approached, the enhanced magnetic field began to interact with their drive systems. The effect was subtle at first, slight variations in their flight paths, minor power fluctuations in their engines. "They're scanning the magnetic field," Emily said, excitement creeping into her voice. "But they're not seeing it as a weapon. To their sensors, it probably just looks like a natural planetary phenomenon." The first scout ship crossed the threshold where the magnetic field was strongest. Suddenly, its engines flared brilliantly before shutting down completely. The vessel began to drift, its systems visibly struggling against the invisible force that had disabled its primary drive. "It worked," Emily breathed, almost disbelieving. "The gravitational disruption is completely neutralizing their propulsion technology." More scout ships crossed the threshold, and one by one, their engines failed. The smaller vessels began to drift helplessly in orbit, unable to maintain their formation or retreat to the main fleet. The command center erupted in carefully controlled celebration. Humanity's defensive innovation had passed its first test, but the Imperium's response was swift and unexpected. The main fleet shifted formation, and massive energy signatures began building up within their largest vessels. "They're charging weapons," Rodriguez warned. "Energy readings off the scale." Sarah's expression hardened. "This is it. All defense stations, prepare for engagement. Activate the orbital platforms. Let's show them what else we've been working on. Around Earth, camouflage satellites shed their stealth coverings, revealing arrays of advanced weapon systems. These platforms had been designed and built in secret over decades, incorporating theoretical technology that humanity had developed in preparation for exactly this scenario. The Imperium ships fired first, brilliant beams of energy that streaked toward Earth's atmosphere. But as they encountered the enhanced magnetic field, something unexpected happened. The beams didn't just dissipate. They were caught in the field's matrix, their energy redirected and amplified. Emily's eyes widened as she analyzed the data. Admiral, the field isn't just disrupting their drives. It's creating a feedback loop with their weapon systems. We can use their own energy against them. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Redirect that energy to the orbital platforms. Target their command ships first. The platforms came to life, channeling the captured energy through human-designed focusing arrays. The resulting blasts were more powerful than anything Earth's weapons could have generated alone, striking the Imperium vessels with devastating precision. Several of the larger alien ships suffered visible damage, their perfect formation breaking for the first time. The Imperium fleet began to pull back, clearly reassessing their strategy in light of Earth's unexpected defensive capabilities. They're retreating to minimum safe distance, Rodriguez reported. But they're not leaving the system. Looks like they're regrouping for a different approach. Sarah nodded grimly. They won't give up easily. This was just the first test. They'll be back with new tactics once they analyze what happened. Dr. Patel, how long can we maintain the magnetic field at this strength? With current power levels? Indefinitely. The system is actually becoming more stable as it runs. We're learning more about their technology with every interaction. Good, because I have a feeling we're about to see why they call themselves an Imperium. Sarah turned to address the entire command center. Alert all stations. This was just the beginning. They'll be back, and next time they'll be ready for our tricks. We need to be ready with new ones. Throughout the command center, humanity's defenders continued their work with renewed determination. They had won the first round, proving that Earth could stand against even an advanced alien empire. But the real battle was just beginning, and they would need every bit of innovation and courage they could muster to face what was coming next. The Imperium fleet returned 3 days later, but they weren't alone. Reinforcements had arrived from deep space, doubling their numbers and bringing with them ships of designs Earth's defenders hadn't seen before. Admiral Chen watched through the command center's main viewport as the alien armada took up attack positions, their formation different from before, adapted to counter Earth's defensive strategy. They've modified their drive signatures, Emily reported, studying the sensor readings. They're using some kind of phased approach to try to counteract our magnetic disruption field. Sarah nodded grimly. And those new ships? Energy readings suggest they're dedicated siege vessels. They're probably designed to overwhelm planetary defenses through sheer power output. The command center's atmosphere was tense but focused. Humanity had spent the past 3 days preparing to, implementing improvements to their defensive systems based on what they'd learned from the first encounter. Multiple launches detected, Rodriguez announced. They're sending out what looks like drone swarms, thousands of them. The small automated craft poured from the Imperium ships like metallic rain, their numbers so vast they created visible patterns against the stars. But Earth was ready. Hidden defense satellites activated, releasing clouds of microscopic particles, a technology developed from studying space dust. Initiate Operation Sandstorm, Sarah commanded. The particles, each one containing a tiny electromagnetic pulse generator, spread out to meet the incoming swarm. When the drones encountered this invisible barrier, their systems began failing in cascading waves. Thousands of the automated attackers simply shut down, becoming expensive space debris. But the Imperium had anticipated resistance. Behind the drone swarm, their main fleet began advancing in a new formation. The siege ships moved to the front, their massive weapon arrays charging with visible energy. "All stations, brace for impact," Sarah ordered. "Activate secondary shield layers." The siege ships fired, releasing beams of energy far more powerful than anything they'd encountered in the first battle. The enhanced magnetic field caught and redirected much of the energy, but the sheer intensity began creating atmospheric disturbances. Aurora displays flickered violently across Earth's skies. "Shield stability at 70%, Emily called out. "They're using some kind of modulated frequency. It's starting to resonate with our field matrix." Sarah's mind raced through options. Adjust the field harmonics. Random variations. Don't let them lock onto any single frequency. The battle escalated quickly. Earth's orbital platforms returned fire, their weapons enhanced by the captured energy from the Imperium's attacks. Several alien ships suffered direct hits, their hulls breaching in spectacular explosions. But for every ship they damage, 2 more moved to take its place. "They're splitting their fleet," Rodriguez observed. 3 main groups. "Looks like they're trying to surround us." Sarah studied the tactical display, noting how the Imperium forces were positioning themselves. Then she saw it. Their strategy wasn't just about overwhelming Earth's defenses. They were setting up a much more dangerous play. They're going to try to destabilize the magnetic field by creating opposing resonance points, she realized. "Doctor, can we compensate?" Emily's fingers flew across her console. "Not with our current configuration. But..." She paused, her eyes lighting up with an idea. "What if we didn't try to fight the resonance? What if we amplified it instead?" "Explain." "Their ships are generating massive amounts of energy to attack us. If we modify our field to create a feedback loop between their resonance points, we could turn their own strategy against them. It's risky. We'd be deliberately destabilizing our own defenses. But they wouldn't expect it." Sarah finished. "Do it." The next few minutes were tense as Emily's team reconfigured the planetary defense grid. The Imperium fleet continued their advance, their ships moving into precise positions for their coordinated strike. "Modifications complete," Emily announced. "But Admiral, once we initiate this, we won't be able to maintain the field for long. The energy buildup will be too intense." Sarah surveyed the tactical situation one last time. "We only need it to work once. All defense stations, prepare for immediate counterattack on my mark. We'll only get one shot at this." The Imperium ships fired simultaneously, their combined energy weapons creating crossing patterns of destructive force. But instead of trying to deflect or absorb the attack, Earth's magnetic field began to pulse, establishing a resonance pattern that matched the Imperium's own. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The energy beams caught in a complex web of magnetic interactions, feeding back into each other and growing exponentially more powerful. Warning alarms blared throughout the command center as the energy levels spiked beyond predicted levels. "Energy buildup critical," Emily shouted. "Field collapse in 30 seconds. All stations, fire everything we have." Sarah ordered. "Target their command ships." Earth's defense platforms unleashed their full arsenal, enhanced by the massive energy being generated by the resonance effect. The Imperium fleet, caught in their own carefully planned formation, had nowhere to dodge. Ship after ship succumbed to the devastating barrage, their hulls breaking apart under the combined force of their own reflected energy and Earth's weapons. When the magnetic field finally collapsed, nearly a third of the Imperium fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships began to retreat, their perfect formation shattered, their tactical advantage lost. "Status report," Sarah demanded, even as emergency systems worked to stabilize the defense grid. "Magnetic field generators offline, but repairable," Emily responded. "Orbital platforms at 60% capacity. But Admiral, we hurt them. Really hurt them." Sarah watched the Imperium fleet withdraw to a safe distance, knowing this battle was far from over. They had won this round, but at a cost. The question now was, what would humanity's next move be? In the aftermath of the battle, Earth's command center had transformed into a hub of frantic activity. Holographic displays showed the ongoing repairs to the defense grid, while teams of scientists and military strategists pored over data from the recent engagement. Admiral Chen stood at the center of it all, her uniform slightly disheveled after hours of continuous operations. Their technology isn't just advanced, Emily explained, gesturing to a detailed analysis of the Imperium ship's energy signatures. It's standardized. Every ship follows the exact same protocols, uses identical systems. It's efficient, but it's also predictable. Sarah finished, a plan already forming in her mind. They're an empire that values uniformity over adaptability. The tactical display showed the remaining Imperium fleet regrouping at the edge of the solar system. They had lost many ships, but they still outnumbered Earth's forces significantly. More importantly, they were likely calling for even more reinforcements. Dr. Patel, what have you learned about their communication systems? Sarah asked, focusing on a new strategy. Emily pulled up another display, showing complex wave patterns. They use quantum-entangled channels for instantaneous communication across their fleet. It's incredibly sophisticated, but again, standardized. We've detected regular patterns in their transmission frequencies. Captain Rodriguez joined them, bringing up additional tactical data. We've also noticed something interesting about their retreat pattern. The damaged ships all withdrew to specific coordinates before jumping to faster-than-light speed. It's like they're following a predetermined protocol. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the data. An idea was taking shape, one that could turn the Imperium's greatest strength into a critical weakness. They're not just an empire, they're a system, and systems can be hacked. Over the next several hours, Earth's best minds worked on what would become Operation Ghost Signal. While repair teams restored the planetary defenses, cybersecurity experts and quantum physicists collaborated on a daring plan to infiltrate the Imperium's command and control network. The risk is enormous, Emily warned during a strategy session. If they detect our intrusion attempt, they could launch an immediate attack before we're fully prepared. Which is exactly why we need a diversion, Sarah responded. She turned to Rodriguez. How quickly can we reposition our stealth platforms? The remaining platforms can be in place within 6 hours, but we'll only have enough for a single coordinated strike. Sarah nodded, reviewing the tactical projections. That's all we'll need. Dr. Patel, how close are we to replicating their quantum communication frequency? We've isolated the carrier wave, but matching it exactly will be tricky. We'll essentially be trying to inject our own signals into their network without them noticing the intrusion. The plan came together piece by piece. Earth's remaining orbital platforms would be positioned to launch what appeared to be a desperate counterattack, drawing the Imperium's attention. Meanwhile, hidden transmitters would attempt to penetrate their communication network with carefully crafted data packets designed to exploit their rigid command protocols. We're not trying to destroy their ships, Sarah explained to her command staff. We're going to make them destroy themselves. The preparation took another full day. Every available resource was devoted to fine-tuning the false signals they would inject into the Imperium's network. They had one chance to get it right. The element of surprise would only work once. Admiral, Emily called out as the final preparations were being made. There's something else you should see. She brought up a new analysis of the Imperium's ship movements. Their formations, their attack patterns. Everything they do is based on complex mathematical sequences, but these sequences have a flaw. Sarah leaned in, studying the patterns. What kind of flaw? They're predictive algorithms. The Imperium ships don't just follow orders. They follow probability matrices that tell them the most efficient way to achieve their objectives. If we can introduce conflicting data into their network, their own systems will generate contradictory commands. Sarah finished, a grim smile forming on her face. They'll have to choose between following their protocols and responding to an immediate threat. The command center buzzed with renewed energy as the plan was finalized. Earth's forces took up their positions, each component of the strategy carefully timed and coordinated. The Imperium fleet remained in their holding pattern, likely preparing for their own next assault. All stations report ready, Rodriguez announced. Stealth platforms in position. Quantum transmitters aligned and calibrated. Sarah took a deep breath, knowing they were about to bet everything on this strategy. If it failed, Earth would be more vulnerable than ever. But if it worked, initiate Operation Ghost Signal, she ordered. Let's show them what happens when they underestimate human ingenuity. The stealth platforms decloaked simultaneously, launching what appeared to be a massive barrage against the Imperium fleet. As expected, the alien ships began to respond according to their tactical protocols, forming up into their standard defense patterns. That's when the real attack began. Hidden transmitters activated, sending carefully crafted data packets through the quantum channels. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, Emperor ships began breaking formation, their movements becoming erratic as conflicting commands flooded their networks. It's working, Emily breathed, watching the chaos unfold. Their systems are trying to reconcile our false data with their standard protocols. They can't adapt fast enough. The Imperium fleet's perfect coordination crumbled as ships received contradictory orders. Some began firing on empty space, while others attempted impossible maneuvers that stressed their structural integrity. The Empire's greatest strength, its standardization and rigid protocols, had become its greatest vulnerability. The Imperium's response to Operation Ghost Signal came faster than anyone expected. A massive surge of energy rippled through their quantum communication network, forcibly resetting their systems and purging the conflicting commands. But in those crucial minutes of chaos, Earth had gained something invaluable: data about the Empire's emergency protocols. They've activated some kind of override system, Emily reported, her fingers flying across multiple holographic displays. But look at this. Their reset sequence exposed their entire command structure. It's hierarchical, flowing from a single source. Admiral Chen studied the new information, noting how the reset commands had propagated through the fleet. Their entire empire runs on the same principle: absolute control from the top down. No room for individual initiative. The command center's main display showed the Imperium fleet reforming, but their previous perfect symmetry was gone. Ships struggled to maintain position, their systems clearly stressed by the forced reset. "Admiral," Rodriguez called out, "we're detecting new energy signatures. Massive ones, approaching from multiple vectors." Sarah's heart sank as she watched more Imperium ships arrive through faster-than-light jumps. These weren't just reinforcements. This was an entire invasion fleet. Hundreds of new vessels, including several that dwarfed even the largest ships they'd seen before. "They're not taking chances anymore," Sarah observed grimly. "This is their full strength." But Emily wasn't paying attention to the new arrivals. Her eyes were fixed on her data screens, a look of revelation spreading across her face. "Admiral, remember how their ships all jumped to specific coordinates when retreating? Those weren't random points. They're nodes in a network, a vast FTL transportation grid that spans their entire empire." Sarah's eyes widened as she understood the implications. "And now we have their command protocols." "We can't destroy their fleet," Emily said, her voice gaining excitement. "But maybe we can cut them off from it." The next hour was a blur of activity as Earth's best minds worked to implement their most audacious plan yet. They weren't going to try to defeat the Imperium fleet in direct combat. Instead, they would use their understanding of the Empire's rigid protocols to turn their own transportation network against them. "All stations, prepare for Operation Exodus," Sarah announced to her command staff. "This is an all-or-nothing play. If it works, we'll have changed the rules of the game. If it fails..." She didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone knew the stakes. The Imperium fleet began their advance, their numbers now so vast they blotted out the stars in several sectors of space, their weapon systems charged, preparing to deliver what they clearly intended to be a killing blow. "Quantum transmitters online," Emily reported. "Modified protocols ready for injection. But Admiral, we'll only have seconds before their systems detect and reject the false commands. Sarah nodded, her expression resolute. That's all we need. All defense stations, prepare to execute on my mark. The tension in the command center was palpable as the massive alien fleet drew closer. Earth's remaining defenses, still damaged from the previous battles, wouldn't stand a chance against this level of firepower. Now, Sarah ordered. Emily's team activated their modified quantum transmitters, sending carefully crafted commands through the Imperium's own communication channels. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, space itself seemed to twist as hundreds of FTL ruptures began opening around the fleet. "It's working," Emily exclaimed. "Their ships are receiving emergency jump commands. Their protocols are forcing them to respond." The Imperium fleet's advance halted as ship after ship was pulled into faster-than-light jumps, their rigid programming unable to distinguish the false commands from genuine ones. But these weren't normal jumps. The coordinates had been carefully calculated to send them to the furthest reaches of their own empire. 70% of their fleet has jumped, Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with controlled excitement. 80%, 90%. When it was over, less than a tenth of the Imperium's invasion force remained in the Sol system. The rest had been scattered across thousands of light years, their own transportation network turned into a trap that would take them weeks or months to recover from. The remaining ships, suddenly finding themselves isolated and overwhelmed, began to retreat. But this time, there was something different about their departure. A new signal came through on all frequencies, its tone markedly different from the artificial smoothness of their previous communications. "People of Earth," the voice said, now carrying what could only be described as grudging respect, "you have demonstrated capabilities beyond our expectations. The Imperium recognizes your right to independence. A formal diplomatic delegation will be dispatched to discuss terms." The command center erupted in celebration, but Sarah maintained her composure. "Acknowledge their message," she ordered. "Inform them that we'll be happy to discuss diplomatic relations as equals." As the last Imperium ships disappeared into FTL jumps, Emily approached the Admiral. "We didn't just defend Earth," she said quietly. "We showed them something they've probably never seen before, the power of adaptation, of thinking beyond rigid protocols." Sarah nodded, finally allowing herself a small smile. "That's the thing about humanity. We don't just survive. We learn, we adapt, we overcome. And now, they know it too." The view screen showed Earth, still standing proud despite the battles it had endured. Its defense systems were damaged but repairable, its people united in a way they had never been before. They had faced the greatest threat in human history and emerged not just victorious, but stronger. "Send word to all stations," Sarah commanded. "The immediate threat is over, but our work is just beginning. We've earned our place among the stars. Now we need to prove we deserve to keep it." As the sun rose over Earth, casting its light on a planet forever changed by recent events, humanity looked to the stars with new confidence. They had stood against an empire, and won not through superior technology or numbers, but through innovation, adaptability, and the uniquely human ability to think beyond established limits. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would they.